We're going to begin our study of motion by looking at how keyframes operate. And as quickly as I can spit out what a keyframe is, basically it is a position for an object or drawing or whatever. We deal with keyframes and then we let the computer figure out how objects get from keyframe to keyframe. If you don't understand that yet, don't worry, we're going to look at it together. I'm using After Effects for this because it's the most common motion tool out there. There are a handful of tools that are not quite as good as After Effects, but are close, that use very, very similar principles. So for example, if you want to do this with Rive or something similar, where you can get access to the program, at least on a limited basis for free, that's totally fine. Okay, so I'm going to start a new project. And I'm going to go to New Composition, and for my purposes, I'm going to choose the standard 4K option, which is at 23.976 frames per second. I will talk to you in detail about what all this stuff means at some point in the future, but not today. And I'm going to make the duration 4 seconds is fine. We'll say okay. All right. What I really want to do is I want to study how I get objects from a point to another point. What I just did, by the way, was I lowered my timeline so that I could make my screen where I'm going to see things moving bigger. What I want to do is eventually I'm going to create 4 different balls, and we're going to look at how those different circles can be moved around on the screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the shape tool, and I'm going to go down to the ellipse tool. The way that I got there was I just clicked on the shape tool, which might look like a rectangle tool to you when you first open the program. And by clicking and holding on it, I see all the other options, and I want to get to the ellipse tool. When I draw an ellipse, what I want to do is I want to hold the shift key down while I'm drawing it so that it will produce a perfect circle. Now, I hate that color, so I'm going to choose something more pleasant to look at, something a little bit pastel-y. Okay, there we go. Now, as you can see, what happened was After Effects created a shape layer. It put a shape on the layer, and then there are transform tools on the layer. If I click this caret, I can see all of the various ways that I can transform the object over time. Now, what I really want, though, is I want this thing right here to be in the center of the circle. Let me show you why. It's because if I rotate, it's going to rotate around that thing. So I always need to be cognizant of where my anchor point is, in relationship to the object. So the easiest way to get that anchor point where I want it is just to grab the pan behind tool, which is also called the anchor point tool, and grab the anchor point and stick it in the middle of the circle. However, if I want to be super accurate about it, if I want it to be perfectly in the middle of the circle, the way that because I have an OCD problem or something, the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to change the position of the object on its contents level. Like we have transform tools under contents, we also have regular transform tools. These are transforming the layer itself. These are transforming the object itself. And there are times that I want to transform a shape that I've built in After Effects in different ways. In this particular instance, in order to center the anchor point precisely, I used the transform controls under contents, but those are not the transform tools I want to use for the rest of this exercise. Okay, so now that I have a circle with an accurate anchor point, I'm going to go to my selection tool, and I'm going to run up here, and I'm going to put it sort of in a space where I still have room for 3 more circles, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bounce these things back and forth across the screen, and we're gonna see different ways that we can make this object bounce back and forth. And basically what I want to do is at 0 seconds, I want to create a keyframe for its position at 0, and then at 1 second, I want to create a keyframe for its position on the other side of the screen. And that's basically what's happening. I created a keyframe for one place I wanted it to be, I created a keyframe for another place I wanted it to be, and now the computer is doing the math to figure out which position needs to be at which frame in order to make it look as though it's moving, okay? And we call the act of how it's getting from one keyframe to another interpolation. So what I want to do now is I've selected both of these keyframes by just dragging across them, and I'm going to hit copy, which on my Mac here is Command C, and I'm going to go to the 2 second mark, and I'm going to hit Command V, and then I'm going to grab that first keyframe, and I'm going to put it here at the end again, but I'm going to back it up by 1 frame, so it's exactly on 4 seconds instead of the frame before 4 seconds. And so now my ball is going to loop, going back and forth. Okay. Now, this motion that it's doing is extremely, extremely linear. The way objects normally move when they are moving back and forth like this is they start a little bit slower and they speed up, and then they slow down a little bit when they get to the other side. I'm going to call this one circle. I'm going to call this circle 1. And that is not how this is moving. This is moving at an even pace the entire time. So what I'm going to do is on this layer, I'm going to Command C for copy, Command V for paste. Now I have a second circle, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on its very first keyframe, I'm going to change this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. What I want to do is I want to change its y-axis so it's lower than this first one. And I'm going to grab that number, and I'm going to Command C to copy it, and I'm going to go over here, Command V to paste it, and then I'm going to grab those 2 keyframes, and I'm going to paste them, and once again I'm going to, there we go, I'm going to copy the first keyframe, put it at the end, slide it over 1 frame. So now I have two balls that are moving identically the same way. Now, what I want, though, is I want for the second ball to move more naturally. And the way that that's going to work is I want it to start off slow, get fast, and then slow down as it approaches the next keyframe. Well, After Effects has a built-in tool for executing that precise thing. So here I am. I'm going to drag across all of my keyframes. I'm going to hit Control-click. On a PC, that would be a right click. And I'm going to go down to Keyframe Assistant, and I'm going to choose Easy Ease. Easing is a term used for how fast or slow something's going. And the normal way things move is to get from one point to another in time. They start off slow, they get faster, then they slow down as they approach the next stopping point. So now these 2 balls are getting to the exact same keyframes at the exact same times. It's just that one's moving very linearly and the other one's moving more naturally. The other thing I'm going to do with the second ball is I'm going to change its color just so you can see it more easily. So under Contents for Circle 2, I'm going to change that color from green to sort of a aqua color. Okay. Again, to play this, I'm hitting the space bar. And I want you doing this exercise as well, draw these circles and get these keyframes going. I think this will really be a good kickoff to you learning how to deal with motion. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to create another version of this. I'm going to go back to Circle 1, I'm going to hit Command C, Command V. So I have a third circle, and I'm going to go back to absolute 0. I'm going to change my Y-axis so that I can see this down here. I'm going to copy my Y position, and add it to the next frame. I'm going to copy these two keyframes. I'm going to copy my first keyframe and I'm going to put it at the end and paste over where it was. And I'm also going to, once again, change this color just so that we can see that it is different very, very easily. Okay, now what I want with this one is rather than seeing all this motion, I just want it to jump from one keyframe to the next one. And here's the deal. The computer is going to figure out all of the points in between each one of these keyframes. But what if we take this first keyframe and we copy it and then we paste it on the frame right before our next keyframe? What that tells the computer is that it needs to figure out the space between this keyframe and this keyframe, which is nothing. They are identical. So it stays in place. And then when we get to the next keyframe, it simply jumps. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this keyframe and copy it. And on the frame right before the next keyframe, I'm going to paste it. So now it knows that it has to stay here. It's drawing all the spaces between this keyframe and this keyframe, which are the same ones. And then it jumps. Okay, so now all of these circles are getting to the same points at exactly the same time, but their movements are wildly different. The difference, the way that the computer is dealing with the motion in between the frames is called interpolation. Okay, I got one more of these that I want to show you. Again, I'm going to copy circle 1 and paste it, and I'm going to change its Y position down here so that I can see where it's at really easily. I'm going to grab that Y position and I'm going to copy it into the next keyframe. I'm going to grab those two keyframes. I'm going to copy them. I'm going to grab the first keyframe and I'm going to paste it down here and shift it over one. So now it is identical to the others, or to the first circle rather. And then I'm going to change its fill color to yet another tone just so we can see it easily. Now, here's what I want to do with this one from an interpolation perspective. On this one, I want to ease it, meaning I want it to speed up or slow down or whatever. But rather than using easy ease, rather than using a prefab amount of ease, I want to be able to control the ease. Now, After Effects allows you to do this, but it does it in a really, really weird way. This might be the one thing about After Effects that is the least user-friendly part. So what I got to do is I got to right-click or control-click on position, and I have to separate dimensions. Once I have separated dimensions, I can go into the graph editor, and I can choose all of the keyframes. Let me do that again because I missed a couple. There we go. I can choose all the keyframes, and then I can convert them to easy ease. But because I am in the graph editor, I actually have the power to change how the easy ease is working. And I can do crazy things with it if I want to. So my goal for you is to just play with how this ease is working. By the way, for those nerds out there that really want to know how this works, some people call these things handles. They're actually called Bezier handles. We'll talk more about Bezier handles in relationship to other things as time goes on. But I really want you to see this principle that you can affect how the ease works just by using the handles. And we'll do some exercises coming up so that we can use these ease tools really, really effectively in order to create different kinds of motion. Okay?